Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of TED Excellence, the show in which I know nothing about what's going to be talked about, but I try to pretend that I do to make myself feel smart because I'm just an English major. And we come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. And joining me today, finally, after so much time of planning and this and that and the other, it's the Script Doctor. Hello, Script Doctor.
Hello, I'm happy to be back on the moon with you. It's always a light-hearted experience.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have something for that. Yeah, a lot of open spaces up here, everybody. There's plenty of land. Buy your land now. Eventually, I'm going to buy a plot of land on here for myself. But either way, for those of you out there who have no idea who Script Doctor is, Script Doctor, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am a professional screenwriter working currently located in Canada, but I work out of Hollywood. I fix screenplays for film and television when asked, as well as also pitch, shop, and sell my own works, original works, for the hopes and entertainment of yours truly. Mostly myself, yes, which means myself. I do it to entertain myself, but ideally I would like those that watch the stuff I make to be entertained as well. But it's not important as the stuff that entertains me. Just to stick my own Hollywood aspects into it for that. But yes, I also, on the side, I do events like this on YouTube. I have Twitter at ScriptDoctorPhD, and I also have a Patreon where I focus on reviewing screenplays on a YouTube show on Saturday, as well as throwing in notes, tips, and tricks on how to write better. If that is a skill you are looking to develop, you can come on over there. There's over 100 article posts to help you better shape your writing style along with reviews. And yeah, more stuff on the way with that thing. So if that is of your interest, you can go sign up to the Patreon. It comes with a 7-day free trial at the base tier, where you can take a look at all the fun content that I have provided over the last year and then some. And if that is to your liking, I appreciate the support. If not, no worries, no harm, no foul. Please get as much as you can out of it. It is there for you.
Well, there you go. And links to all of Script Doctor's particulars are in the description. I just updated it a minute ago with the Patreon link. So if you've been sitting and waiting for the show to start for a little while, it might not be there, but if you refresh, it should show up. And yes, you can also find Script Doctor occasionally as a frequent guest on Midnight's Edge and occasionally Midnight's Edge After Dark, talking about insider movie stuff and script stuff and all that kind of thing. I hope to, as I've done previously last year, interview Script Doctor specifically about the aftermath of the various Hollywood strikes from 2023, hopefully in the next month or so, depending on timing. But we'll get to that at another time. But today, finally, I have Script Doctor as a wingman for a TED event. Yes, an actual TED event, guys. Cream of the crop, top of the heap. A number one TED, not TEDx. TED event. And when I was talking to Script Doctor about what to do for this special episode, I asked him, do you want to do something that's in your sort of professional wheelhouse or just some random thing? And he said, no, whatever you think. Whatever works. That's either way. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's make sure that he and I are on a similar wavelength here. And let's just do something that doesn't have any particular connection immediately to either of our careers or personal experiences or anything. And thus, we get one of my favorite types of TED Talks, and that's something that the title offers us both a problem and a potential solution. The U.S. has a teacher shortage. Here's how to fix it. So that implies that we're going to be given a sales pitch for an idea, and the quality of that idea and its argumentation will be what we'll be looking at. And part of that process is the bingo card. Yes, we have for those of you that might not have attended a TEDx event before, we use a bingo card. There are 3 different iterations of it, and Script Doctor has picked bingo card B as he is the guest. And links to the bingo cards are in the description below, so get your bingo card ready. We'll be following along with that as we go. But first, a few hellos. And given time, I don't know if I'll get to them all, but I'll do my best. But first and foremost, Derek LaRue. Thank you so much, Derek, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Very much appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the show and hope you're having a good day. And some more hellos here real quick. Pop Culture Minefield, which might be Gary Cassell. Good afternoon. Keeverdam, good afternoon to you. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links to the GoFundMes and various fundraisers for our friends. Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Arriaga, Rhonda, and Blind Press. And Blind Press is the one that I have to highlight in particular. She and her family are without a water heater in the Great White North of the frozen Canadas. And so if you can help out donating there through that link to Blind Press and her family to help install and finalize the purchase of a new water heater, that would be appreciated. So thank you so much for that ahead of time. And thank you, Kiever Dam, for always providing the links. Mike Savage, Blarg, Noah Sencio, good afternoon. Tony Giff, good afternoon. Let's see who else is here. Tall Person, good afternoon to you. Kiro Soldier, Zero the Hero 909, John Miller, and going down the list here, Jaeger Pony, Mark Smart. Yes, I know it's a Wednesday. What is happening? It's a special event, Mark Smart. There will still be a TED Excellence tomorrow, I think, unless I run out of steam today. Funtime Bats, good afternoon. Miranda Stone, good afternoon. Queen of the Discords, Divine Petulance, good afternoon. Stoka, holy cats, Stoka, Brett, that is ridiculously generous of you. Thank you so much, Brett. I'll get this out of the way before you both get deep into this. Well, that sounds suggestive. And sorry I missed a birthday stream. Well, thank you, Brett. I appreciate it. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you so much for the generosity and the donation. I'll be working to pay it forward as always. Appreciate it and hope you enjoy the show. Phil Thomas, good afternoon. And Rotten Corpse, good afternoon. All right. So anybody I missed, anybody who's lurking, anybody in the future, hope you're having a good day. But yes, let's get into it. Script Doctor, is there a teacher crisis in Canada by any chance?
Not for their numbers, just in their quality.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think ahead of time here because I know nothing about this talk. You guys, as always, I have not watched this ahead of time. Didn't even read the description of the video itself. All I know is the timestamp on it and the title. And so when I'm thinking of how, okay, if you have a shortage of, well, anybody in any profession, how do you fix it? And the first things that come to my mind, and especially in the modern day, are either you increase wages or lower standards or a combination of the two. That's, if you're trying to solve a crisis quickly, those are the sort of cynically the things I think about first and foremost. And I'm curious to find out what our speaker has to say about it.
Me too, because I mean, those two proposals would not solve the situation in Canada.
Well, yeah, because if your only concern is the numbers, and this is and this all this and again, I don't know what our speaker is going to talk about, but given my YouTube pedigree, if you're only concerned about the numbers, I come back to the whole quota system and DEI. If you're only looking for this, and there you have to lower the standards for that just to increase the amount without necessarily increasing the quality. And so the things I'm going to be looking out for are what is the offered solution? Does it keep in mind maintaining or increasing quality and not just quantity? But also in general with TED Talks like this, when I see something that says, here's a problem and here's an offered solution, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I have the template for a persuasive essay right at the forefront of my brain. This is my English major coming into the fore here. And so there's certain things that have to be hit in such a presentation to make me at least appreciate the presentation, if not agree with it. And that is, you have to have your thesis statement, you have to have your body with your examples and evidence, and at least some concessions to the other side and or answers to those other side opposition. And then you have to have your closing statement that concludes everything and wraps it up and gives you a nice little bow. So that's what I'll be looking for mentally. And if he doesn't hit those points, as we've seen plenty of times in TEDx, I will be cranky and you'll see it and hear it. But all that being said, are you ready, Script Doctor?
I am ready.
Okay. And if you ever want me to pause the video, and by the way, guys, I will have to pause occasionally just as a matter of course, because YouTube and transformative work and everything. But at any point you want me to pause, just give a shout out and and we will go if you have something you want to say that I haven't heard. Okay. All right. So before I babble anymore, this one starts out, this one's just under 12 minutes long, everyone. Remember, bingo card B, get your bingo cards ready. Start off with a few seconds for a sound test, make sure everybody can hear it, and then we will proceed.
Hi, I'm Randy Saraguchi Jr., and I've been working in teacher recruitment for the past 8 years.
Okay, there you go. He's Randy, 8 years, teacher recruitment. Do you hear that okay, Script Doctor?
I did.
Everybody in the chat hear that okay? Let me know if you would. And let's see. Yes, everybody giving Stoka Brett appropriate accolades for his generosity. Sounds good, says Somnamnul Nation. Sounds good, says Mark Smart. And all right, well, then let's see what he has to say.
in the U.S.
Okay.
And here, in the richest nation in the history of the world, we're in the midst of a historic teacher shortage.
Okay.
In a place where money can solve most problems, I've been thinking about how we respond to this economic emergency.
Money can't buy you love. Money can't buy you a successful film franchise. So money doesn't solve most problems unless it's spent wisely.
Correct. Not only that, money and teachers has been a huge conflict since before either of us were born.
Yes.
With regards to responsibility and the infrastructure. In fact, even prior to the United States enacting the Department of Education, there was still a great deal of difficulty maintaining resources available to students. The idea was that the Department of Education would fix that. Clearly, it did not.
Mhm.
But yeah, money. Starting off with money seems like a very poor choice, because that's suggesting that the problem is money, as opposed to what the root cause of the problem is as well. The question would be, well, why doesn't hasn't money factored into be addressed thus far?
Well, I mean, making teaching jobs and a teaching career a viable option for someone to make a living in the first place is important. You have to make it attractive in that way, that there's a future for it for somebody to want to dedicate their lives or their careers to being an educator, and then maintain that over the course of time, and conceivably improve upon their skills. So money is a factor in that you have to make it a viable option for people to want to become a teacher, beyond just public service or personal passion for the subject or for passing on information. So that money is a consideration in that regard. And we see over and over again, I can't think of a state that in some way, shape, or form, year after year, hasn't had a teacher strike of one kind or another, mostly talking about pay and benefits.
Yes,
So,
definitely in the public sector, very rare in the private. But fun fact, when I graduated college, I was hired as a teacher. I wasn't able to get a professorship because I obviously was way too young and didn't have the accolades for it. But I was hired as a teacher to start literally the day after commencement to teach the class under me of some of the programs that I had excelled in so much that my professors, when they started actually having to leave to go into the world of entertainment for a big gig, they recommended me to take over because they were that confident. And I had to go through accreditation. I had to go through a ton of interviews.
right.
I passed them all. I got to teach, and I was making enough money to afford my internship that I got at Paramount for that summer that was coming.
Nice.
And when I was talking to some of my friends who are teachers, I was getting paid just for one semester almost 4 times what they would make in a year.
Oh, geez.
At a public high school, which is a lot of money.
Real quick, thank you, Keeverdam. I don't know what to say. Sorry I can't play bingo, and sorry this isn't very much, but hi, Scribe and Script. Thank you, Keeverdam. And by the way, not very much. You guys, I never expected anything from doing any of this stuff. A dollar still humbles me. I mean, my father, who I've talked about frequently recently, thankfully, he taught me the value of what a dollar represents as far as somebody's labor. So, I don't expect anything, but anything that you guys donate bowls me over. And so, Keeverdam, you have nothing ever to apologize for as much work and dedication as you put into being a mod on this channel and helping me out. And certainly with a donation, never have anything to apologize for. So everybody say thank you to Keeverdam for always faithfully providing the links that I almost always forget to have set aside for the fundraisers and keeping tabs on everything. Thank her for her help. And thank you, Keeverdam. Very much appreciated. John Miller, thank you so much. 2 bits from a 2-bit. Well, you're at least 3 bits in my book, John Miller. Don't undersell yourself. And thank you. Appreciate it very much. All right. Anyway, that commentary aside, we haven't gotten into this yet. So he's got 3, for those of you listening at home, he's got a card up. There's 3 questions up there, which, by the way, is already a list as part of the presentation. So circling a list on the bingo card, as well as free space, because free space is always a good price. And then I think I'm safe in circling economic disparity, since he's talking about money here, but we'll wait until he gets more specific.
I concur with that part for sure.
Okay. Well, you know what, with the guest prerogative, circling economic disparity we'll probably get there anyway. So we already have 3 squares circled on the card, and let's see what else he has to say.
And 3 questions come to mind.
Okay.
How much is too much to invest in teachers? How much is too little to invest in teachers? And what should any new investment in teachers actually cover?
Well, I guess those are good questions. But I mean, personally, I'd say, well, what are your qualifications? What space are you trying to fill? I mean, the same questions you'd ask for filling any particular job position, because teachers, as specialized and as vital a service as they provide to society, it's still a job, and there's still expectations, and there's still qualifications, and depending on where you're going and how much and what kind of work you're doing, a kindergarten teacher versus a university professor, good bit of a spectrum there.
Quite a bit. The other part too is the path to teaching that frightened me is that there are literally teachers that have left high school, go to teachers college, and then go back to teach high school within 6 years.
Right.
That 6-year cycle. There is no room for personal maturity or growth from the teacher in that period that actually will allow them to teach competently, because they're stuck in an isolated social structure. And even if they're going from teachers college, high school teachers college, to elementary school or public school or grammar school, however you want to word it, there's still something said to experience that the actual institution itself does not have a proper bridge program to get teachers to interact in society outside of the pseudo society that is the education world.
I wonder, for some odd reason, that suddenly makes me wonder if the near crisis in teachers ending up in relationships with their students might not be an outgrowth of living in such a confined environment and never really experiencing the world outside of high school after they've left high school.
Not only that, on the teacher side of things, it's usually the female teachers with the male students, and the age difference between them is typically within a decade. So, you just add another 10 years to that teenager kid, and he's like 23 and she's 33. Nobody bats an eye.
Right.
And justifiably so. They're both adults, age of consent. However, having been in high school, having known enough things, and being in freshman, if an attractive teacher came on to me, I would have 2 things going through my mind. 1, yes, and 2, do I really want to be on the news? And those 2 things I'd have to reconcile, because guess what? Listen, as much as we agree that children can't consent, there's enough knowledge for a 13 to 14-year-old boy to understand what is happening and what's going on there. And then the social stigma with their friends and buddies, that would be the peer pressure to encourage it, factors in as well. So it's not a great situation to be in. But the fact of the matter is that you have some of these teachers that are still very youthful, and still some of them might have been dorks in high school, and now they've grown into themselves and they become attractive, and now they're back in high school again, and they see the popular kid.
Yeah.
They're just wishing to themselves, man, I wish I was able to date the popular kid in my high school when I was their age, but now I'm here and they're the popular kid and they're showing interest in me. Definitely inappropriate, but boy, I wish I had that as a teenager, and now you can, and now they do. And it's
overeducated and socially immature.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's really like, it's not great. And I always find the irony of the fact that you have 2 institutions that deal with children, one basically 5 days a week and one day a week. I'm not going to mention the other one, but you can all imagine. And yet they still have the same problem, only on the school side of things, it's mostly heterosexual relationships. And on the other side of things, in that one institution, it's homosexual relationships. And yet, there's a certain party that's way more upset about the school stuff than the other place stuff. And I always found that kind of fascinating. There's a story there. And so.
All right. Now back to the cash consideration.
Let's see
More additional context to remember. This teacher shortage is about more than teachers.
Okay.
Millions of students nationwide are impacted by having an underqualified or substitute teacher guiding a full year of school.
That would be a problem. So good. We're going to talk about quality. We're going to talk about, training, education, licensure, the whole 9 yards. Right. So money and quality. Fingers crossed. I mean, I don't know what he's going to say, but I'm like, okay, all right. Because I always have hope.
The substitute stuff, because that's a very like, again, if you have a substitute teacher that's working the full year, guess what? They're not a substitute anymore. They're staff.
That's a full-time teacher.
So there's a big difference between a teacher shortage and, let's say, a fast food worker shortage.
Okay.
McDonald's may be missing a couple of cashiers up front, but burgers will still get flipped and sold.
Yes. Okay. Education shouldn't be seen as fast food. I agree. Unless you're, I mean, a lot of places have been trying to make it so over the last several years, like, what was it? University of Phoenix or whatever. And sort of like, they did do the fast food sort of model to it. There was a great documentary from, it's many years ago now, but it's still relevant, from Frontline on PBS called College Inc. And it talks about the rise of correspondence colleges, internet colleges, and the structures and the pitfalls of it as well. So, okay, I get the analogy. These two things are different, and yet,
when teachers are missing from schools, however, children usually aren't learning up to standards. So as a result, the U.S. is scoring 26 out of 81 nations on an international math exam, amongst other disappointing educational outcomes.
Okay, so talking about quality, I wonder if he's going to address, speaking of math, the math equity movement and how that has completely damaged everybody's world.
How he picks a clearly Asian classroom.
I think that's China. I think because China. I think in math, I think China is top of the pops. I think
they're very focused on it, and the reason being is that they're culturally, as weird as it is to reveal, but I learned this the hard way. Generally speaking, the focus on the understanding of math is far more difficult in that culture than it is anywhere else, and that's why they're so dedicated in putting it first, because they're trying to make up for something that that's not as easily accessible, I guess. Because I have a two step brothers and a stepsister that's from South Korea, born and raised there. They know it all very well, and they basically say that math is actually not something that you would equate as intuitively with other cultures. Even Japanese people get it way better than Chinese, and something I don't understand the core reason is why. She suspects it's cultural, but I've actually been in like fast food restaurants and stuff where visitors from China are being, you call out your number, right, and you go pick up your order, and they know the English translation of the numbers, but when it's called out, they just stand there like they're morons. And I think like, are you trolling these people or something? And it's like, well, I don't know what he's saying. It's like, he said the number that's on your card there. It's like, oh, do you not know your basic numbers? Yeah, I do. It's like, we're not paying attention. It's like, no. Sometimes they just don't compute, especially because this guy was a language major. That's
bizarre.
And I'm like, that is really weird. And I started asking and inquiring. And it's like, yeah, it's so prevalent and powerful in their culture now, because they're trying to make up for the fact that, they're not the best at it compared to all the other things that they're very naturally good at. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That wouldn't it be interesting here if we had a culture where we identify the things that we suck at most, and then we work so hard to make ourselves better so that people don't realize we suck at it naturally. I mean, that would be something, right? Lots of areas where we could address.
Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk, for the happy, dancy, smiley, lovely Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow-wee! Wow!
Oh, there's a drunken Uncle Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickletrunk. I'll have to get a Dogcat Fox wowie wow out of you at some point. Get a stinger. I've got trying to line up all my celebrities with wowie wow wows. But okay, so yes, America is not first in mathematics.
And on the cusp of artificial intelligence becoming the fourth industrial revolution, we have a long way to go to ensure that we are adequately prepared to participate in the next economic boom.
What? I'm not sure I draw a line between what. Okay, well, artificial intelligence will just do the math for us.
Well, there's that, but also he's using a WEF term that has actually been heavily disputed, because we're not in the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, I keep hearing people say things like that. Yeah,
and we're still riding it out all the way through here. You can't have a revolution until everything's gone, and then you have to have another one afterwards. As far as we know, we are still in that very first industrial revolution. It's still chugging along, and we've been adding to it because that's how it works. If you point it to me where the 2 and 3 were, maybe there's a room for that discussion. But if you've got a guy that's talking about teacher shortage in education and he doesn't understand what the concept of the Industrial Revolution is, I am very doubtful that his proposal is going to be useful to these people.
Let's see.
So what can we do about this?
I don't know.
Well, we know that one major factor in improving student outcomes is the effectiveness of the teacher in front of the classroom.
I think we've always known that. It's not much of a mystery, but okay, yes.
So in the wake of a national teacher shortage, we have to explore new ways to recruit and retain teachers to join our schools long enough to actually become good at one of the most difficult professions in the world.
Well, preferably they're already good, or at least have all the tools they need before they even step into the classroom.
That's the goal.
Yes. Okay. Recruitment. This is where I'm like, getting all Kenny Loggins danger zone here. Okay. Are we talking about reducing standards? Are we going to, or at least imply it or somehow stream? Now, just as an aside, I am sure there are legitimate arguments for simplifying the bureaucracy and or the licensure of teachers. I'm sure there's some reasonable arguments to be made for certain things. Maybe there's some archaic checks and balances that really do stifle teacher advancement or something. Probably so. But is it going to be something reasonable that he's moving towards, or is it going to be some kind of like blanket? We need to just drop the bar across the board without otherwise consideration. That's all I'm always a little wary of when it's like when somebody starts talking about increasing recruitment, like, okay, by what method are you suggesting we do this?
So this is a two-headed monster of a problem.
Okay.
On one hand, we have to engineer historic interests to inspire new people to pursue teaching. And on the other, we have to find ways to economically anchor new and existing teachers to stay for at least 3 to 5 years.
Whoa. You didn't talk about, hold on. You have to inspire people to show up, and then you also have to inspire people to show up. Did I just hear the same thing said twice in 2 different ways?
I think so. Well, you have to inspire people to show up, and I think he's trying to say that you have to inspire them to show up, and then you have to inspire them or tantalize them to stay there.
Okay, all right. Retention. Okay, recruitment and retention.
Yes,
okay.
Recruitment and retention.
But didn't he start out with this by saying quality?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a two-headed problem where you talk about quality, but then you stop talking about quality and just talk about recruiting and keeping people. Okay.
Enough time to sufficiently increase one's effectiveness as a teacher.
Sure.
So to attack this teacher shortage,
Uh-huh.
we can take a page out of the military's playbook and provide basic allowances to make teaching more attractive to new talent.
Okay.
You want to structure schools like the military.
So you want to give like a hiring bonus or something? Is there going to be a
recruitment office on the street?
Yeah, okay.
Some version of a teacher GI Bill.
A teacher GI Bill.
Huh.
Okay.
Could help us reset the value we place on educating our children. How do I know something like this could work? Well, 2 reasons. The US has done this before, and San Francisco is doing this now.
Oh,
well,
okay, wait.
There we go.
Whoa. Okay, wait. You got a 2-pronged sweet and sour sales pitch right there. Okay, in the first instance, yes, America's done this before, but why was it successful back then? Because there was a demonstrable crisis in the world that everybody could see and had, shown to them between Pearl Harbor and everything else. Yeah, people saw that there was a crisis, and a whole generation knew there was like a force of evil out there and everything, and they saw the results of it, and they saw the threat, and that pushed people forward to make the decision to join up. You would have to have such and I'm not saying it's impossible, but you would have to have such a rampant, massive media blitz and propaganda blitz on the crisis in education, and frame it in such a way that, Uncle Sam wants you to improve the lives of your children, et cetera, that kind of thing, which could work. But then you're going to say the San Francisco's been doing this. Well, now you need to show us how the educational quality in San Francisco has gone up as a result. Now, I don't know what's going on in San Francisco as far as education specifically, so maybe there's something there.
Neither do I, but I'm worried he wants to pitch his own version of the Reserved Officers Training Corps and call it the Reserve Teachers Training Corps, the RTTC, which I don't think he's thought that through. If that's where he's going, I hope he doesn't go there. But
let's find out.
After the end of World War II, the U.S. government was nervous that millions of veterans would have trouble readjusting to normal civilian life.
Okay.
As a result, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act, more commonly known as the GI Bill, was passed into law and created an unprecedented investment in American public service. Here's what that looked like. Education supports in the form of annual tuition contributions and monthly living stipends, workforce support in the form of unemployment benefits and job search guidance.
And I just have to pause here for YouTube's sake. Okay, so you want to offer basically what? A broad spectrum grant to people that say that they will become teachers?
It looks that way, yeah.
Okay.
Almost like like a stipend on top of their normal salary, it would be the case.
Yeah,
or at least
but you'd have
to encourage them to go into teaching.
Yeah, but they would have to sign a contract, something binding it with some teeth to it if they're going to take all this, that they will take classes or they will focus their education on, education, and that they have to have some minimum initial term of service to education as a result. You don't just get this stuff for free and just walk away with it. So you'd have to lock somebody into like with a minimum term of service in the military or something. Because this is the GI Bill was there to, rebuild the economy after, like I said, after World War II, with a whole bunch of people coming back from war and trying to get them back into the world. This is not exactly a GI Bill in that sense, unless I'm misunderstanding what he's talking about. But okay.
Financial support via loan guarantees, which back veterans borrowing and increase access to credit to buy homes and start businesses, and wellness support, more medical care, including the construction of new hospitals nationwide.
Okay, but here's the thing, and here's the moral justification for a lot of that. Everybody that benefited from the GI Bill had put their life on the line in service to the country, and thus they, for all intents and purposes, were on a higher level as a citizen than Joe Schmo, because they had given something over to receive this benefit and to receive this assistance when they came back. Now he hasn't said it yet, but I'm curious to know how he's going to carry this analogy over to someone thinking about becoming a teacher. Because yes, being a teacher is, after a fashion, a public service and everything else, but it's not, you haven't already given your service to then receive this benefit. He wants to use this benefit as an enticement for people to give their service. And that's a different proposition.
Very different, because it's not like, listen, if he was saying, let's focus on Baltimore, where, everybody has lethal weapons when they go to school. And it is a battlefield. I understand that. Okay, fine. There's an equivalence there, comically. But he's speaking on a national level, which I don't think equates to the same situations as you pointed out with regards to serving your country in a war where you potentially give the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that what he's, again, we haven't gotten to the specific yet, but if he's trying to draw a line between the GI Bill and this other idea, I'm not saying it couldn't work. I'm just saying that all that money has to come from the taxpayer. And the argument to the country on a GI Bill is a lot easier sell than just saying give money to somebody that might become a teacher. There's a lack of a moral or obligatory recompense to somebody in what I think he's proposing versus someone who's coming back from having put their life on the line for the country. So, okay, let's see.
From 1944 to 1956, the GI Bill gave out $14.5 billion in education and training supports to veterans who needed to work.
Yeah, and so, okay, you don't have to sell us on the GI Bill anymore. We know it existed. We know it worked for the most part, and that, but I mean, as sort of a sidewise example to military service and benefiting somebody. My father, thankfully, just benefited from his service through the Veteran Administration, paying for his cancer treatments, which if he didn't have that, he'd be having to shell out $22,000 a month just for the medicine to try to keep him alive, which is insane, but that's where we're at in this world. So
that is.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's nuts.
That worst part is that the medicine does not actually cost that much.
No, it does not. Everybody knows it doesn't, but you add in everybody's fees and this, that, and the other. Anyway, so I know he's doing his presentation and all, but we're 4 minutes into a 11-minute presentation. So he needs to get moving here pretty quick as to what he's proposing.
Today, this equals about $253 billion.
Okay, the amount is irrelevant. What is your proposal?
Could you imagine Democrats and Republicans voting together on this in 2024?
Voting together on anything in any year is a fantasy land with Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, difficult at best.
Me either.
Okay, so
what was once called the best investment the U.S. government has ever made resulted in over 8 million people continuing their education and millions of new home loans granted.
Okay. So, and are you just like, are you talking about giving free home loans to prospective teachers? Like what? Get to it. We get it. Now, what is your proposal? This is where I'm getting antsy. I warned you guys. I start getting the persuasive essay structure in my head. Like, okay, you gave us our thesis statement.
You're repeating it now.
Yeah, you're repeating it over and over again. Come on now. We're almost halfway through your talk.
We invested in education, financial, and wellness supports for veterans because of the value we placed on their public service to us as a nation as a whole.
Yes, they're proven and demonstrable public service, having gone off to fight for war and returning, and then we pay them back for their sacrifice. That's the component you're going to have to, simulate in whatever you're coming up with for teachers. And if you're going to sell this idea, you have to have something that I couldn't even approach actually going off overseas and fighting a war, but you have to find what is the replacement for that? What is the analogy you're going to use for that component? Because without that, you have an uphill battle, not to extend the war imagery.
The battles abroad to defend our children are just as important as the battles we face at home.
It's
abstract. That's not a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, in the abstract, you could be correct. It's true, possibly, depending. But again, there's a difference between the potential of service and proven service. So
they may be different types of terrain, but both involve the same Americans serving the same America. They may be different types of professions, but both deserve a shot at the same American dream.
I don't know, dude. Somebody that decides that. I'm not quite sure I know what that means either, but also it's kind of empty because, again, you're right. They're different professions. They're different types of service, but they're not this. Okay, I'm just going to end up repeating myself now.
Our teachers are true patriots.
Are they?
Protecting, enhancing, developing the lives of American children every day.
Are they? I don't know. I've done a few videos over the last few years that have most teachers, seemingly, at least in large part or small, not really being patriots, not really extending or promoting American values. It's kind of scary.
They are doing a lot of protection of children, but not in the way that people would actually appreciate. And it's also a conflation that I don't like, because you're not, as a parent or as a teacher, you're not supposed to protect your child. You're supposed to prepare them so they can protect themselves.
Exactly.
You have a hand in the protection, but the protection itself is the preparation. Like this classic one, don't talk to strangers. That is a great lesson to help prepare your kid as they're getting socialized in the world. But you can't be up their butt about it and walking with them everywhere, where as soon as they say hi to someone who else says hi, it's like, don't talk to them, because that's going to dissuade them from actually understanding and learning the lesson. They're going to rely on you as the authority figure, as the adult, to step in when problems occur. And we've seen a huge byproduct of that, a huge result of that. Sorry, with subsequent generations.
Yeah, and I also hasn't leaned on it so much yet, but again, little, as I've said in previous, God knows how many other times, little wary of the blurring of the line between the role of an educator versus that of a parent. You're an educator. You're there to teach kids how to think, ideally, not what to think, and they're also not yours to protect. I mean, this. I know. Maybe I'm looking for answers and messages in tree bark or something here, but I start hearing these little phrases and things that make me think, okay, but we still haven't heard your argument. Okay, what is your plan? You've given us the pitch. You're halfway through your talk now. What is the plan?
And after the pandemic changed how we view schools and work,
oh, geez,
it's time for us to take a chance to invest in our teachers as the servicemen and women that they are.
You're not going to, I'm sorry, you're going to, trying to equate a teacher with a war-blooded soldier is not going to work. If you want to have a similar structure in how the GI Bill works, etc., okay, fine. But the more that you try to say the teachers are on the front line of something in the same way as someone going off to war, you're going to stumble at every point unless you've got a really, really good analogy, a really good example. Do you have an active example? You said this is happening in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is it working in San Francisco, or how do they structure it, or how do they do it? You need to give us something to sink our teeth into now.
Pitch us what San Francisco's doing and how it can be applied on a nation level. Because right now, I'm worried that this guy's going to wave his hand behind him. The wall's going to separate, and he's going to try and sell me a Ford Pinto.
Well, this is what I'm always asking for in these things. Like, okay, you've got a pitch, you've got an example, give us a success story. Or at worst, give us a failure that taught you a lesson. Come on.
If we truly want to elevate this profession to inspire new diverse talent to join us, we have to improve both the personal and professional experiences associated with teaching.
Okay.
Well, diverse talent.
All right. Well, first off, let's go to the bingo card. Let's remind ourselves what we're listening for. Even though we're already halfway through this talk, let's remind ourselves and see if anything has come up that we can circle already. All right, remember, guys, this is bingo card B. All right, so we have marginalized or marginalization. Hasn't used those phrases yet, or at least so far. Self-vilification or wretchedness. He's never talked about himself in any regard. Contradicts own point or argument. Not sure what it is yet, because he hadn't really told us what he's arguing for, although I'm getting hints. Feminism, no. Microaggressions or unconscious bias, no. Privilege, not yet. We'll see. Benevolent condescension, well, if he doesn't get to a point soon, maybe. Weightless example. Well,
so far with San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco might be the weightless example. He doesn't come back to it. Plays victim. Again, he hasn't really talked about himself. Remember, that's got to be the speaker themselves putting themselves in some kind of victim status. Collectivize his own demographic. Not yet. Argumentative non sequitur. Well, we'll see. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Not yet. Mind reading or assumes motives. Well, he hasn't gotten outside of his opening pitch yet, so maybe
it's iffy right now. It's kind of like a half.
Yeah. Patriarchy, no, he hasn't talked about any sexual politics. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us any that weren't historical for the most part. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion. Well, we got diverse. Mm-hmm. That's good enough for me. Circling that one. White supremacy, not yet or even implied, but who knows. Childhood or family anecdote. Again, he hasn't talked about himself. No. Systemic or institutional. Yes. I mean, if not specifically in verbiage, then certainly in spirit. He's talking about the system of education and teachers and recruitment and so on. Leaves out vital context. Well, he's got some time to make up for lost time, but he better hurry up because I don't know yet what he's talking about or what his argument is. Sales pitch for product or service. I think it is fair to say that this is a sales pitch for a product and or a service. And lastly, word salad.
He's walking the edge on that, but not 100%.
He is. He is. So we'll give him a minute. But anyway, guys, so far on the bingo card, we have, remember this bingo card B, economic disparity, free space, a list, diversity, equity, and or inclusion, systemic or institutional, and sales pitch for product or service. So you better start changing it up quick, or else we're going to have a pretty sparse bingo card.
And in the Bay Area,
here we go.
We had success doing this with Urban Ed Academy.
Urban Ed Academy. Okay. And what happened there?
After the wave of labor strikes across this country in 2023, we found ourselves revisiting the questions we had in 2018 when we started a campaign to place one Black male teacher in every elementary school in San Francisco.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
There we go.
Stop! No! No! Okay,
The ball has dropped.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
Okay, I honestly thought, and I know this is a constant mistake of mine, that when I get a TED Talk, an actual TED Talk, not a TEDx talk, but an official TED Talk, I might actually finally get something of at least thoughtful quality without a whole lot of nonsense in it. I know I've been fooled before, but okay, you're talking about retention, you're talking about a teacher shortage, and the first element of your concern is the skin color of the teacher. And then and the gender, Black male teacher, wasn't it?
Yep.
What? Okay. Let me have my psychic moment here for a second, okay? Somewhere in here, in the remaining 5 minutes or something, he's going to say something to the effect that studies show that all students benefit from having at least one teacher of color in their education because magic, I guess. And that students need to be able to see themselves in their educators, or they can't believe that they themselves can become a teacher in the future. And my rejoinder to that every time is, well, and I always hear like students that see themselves in their teacher have improved academic outcomes and everything else. I'm like, well, then heck, why don't we follow that to its logical conclusion, right? What parent wouldn't want their student to have the absolute best academic outcomes they could possibly have in education? And if they're going to benefit as just by default by seeing themselves in their teacher, well, obviously then the best thing to do is implement racial segregation in schools. Right? Like shall only teach like, and you get the best outcome, right?
Mm.
Whenever I hear that pitch, anyway, I'm preloading a psychic moment, because if that is how he gives us this entire GI Bill investment, and the first thing he says, first example is, this is how we did in San Francisco by highlighting race and gender first and foremost. Like, let's see. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that I'm just like, whew. This is
that was. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch now at the midpoint.
Those questions were, how much is too much to invest in Black male teachers? How much is too little to invest in Black male teachers? And what should any new investment in Black male teachers actually cover?
I feel like we've been Trojan horsed here. I really do. but okay, I don't know. And while you're going on, Mr. Speaker, at least rhetorically speaking, tell me about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Just tell me about, and Title VII. I mean, both as employers and as institutions that receive federal funding. Just tell me where those two federal laws come into play in this calculus. And also, since you're talking about San Francisco, California outlawed affirmative action in schools, just as far as admissions and stuff, back in 1994, if I remember correctly, 94 or 96. Either way, it's been a while. None of that bleeds over into considerations of hiring practices as well in education. Just asking. Just wondering.
Well, we were not the federal government.
No kidding.
So we had to find creative ways to resource our approach. And we found that we could meet teachers' basic needs with more than money.
No, not teachers. Huh? Black male teachers. And we say creative ways, I suddenly think of Enron and creative accounting. What are you talking about? If you're going to take whatever your plan is in San Francisco and magnify it across the country, what creative ways did you find the money for this?
Well, not only that, his initial pitch started off with trying to get more teachers involved in teaching and retained, but now it is skewed to specifically Black male teachers.
Yeah.
So that's not more teachers. That's just a niche target of teachers.
And I'd really like to know then, what does this subset of the population, based on their race and their gender, specifically need to entice them versus anybody else into becoming teachers? Because there's got to be something in particular for, God, I hate even just joking about this stuff because it sounds so vile.
I mean, even the demographic the math doesn't exist because you've got what, 13-14% of the United States population is black.
Yeah, and only half of that is male, and then only maybe about 3/4 of that remainder is of age to teach.
Age to teach, and then you have to think, well, how much of that demographic is qualified to teach? Probably another fraction of that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be able to do. His proposal has the merit to be applied nationally.
Mr. Tickle Trunk, wait to hear him out. I want to learn to blackmail. Oh, and thank you as well, John Miller. Let's blackmail in blackmails. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. Yeah. Boy, this took a turn at the midpoint. This sucker took a left turn. All right.
Comfortable housing,
what?
Higher education costs, and holistic wellness provisions, for example,
what
are possible without crazy spending.
What's a holistic bonus?
I don't. You hear that word thrown around a lot in DEI pitches and things, talking about holistic solutions to this, that, or the other. And it oftentimes it just feels like a filler word that makes things sound fancy or high-minded or enlightened or something.
You could just use encompassing.
Yeah.
That's
all in one, snake oil. There's a lot of things you could say.
Especially if we do it together as a village and lower the cost burden for everyone involved.
How? Okay, nitty gritty, nuts and bolts. What are you talking about? What is, okay, setting aside my obvious concerns about the whole let's discriminate on the basis of gender and race for the first minute here, you're talking about expanding a GI Bill type plan across the country, and the model is San Francisco. Okay, how did San Francisco do it? And then, and this is, again, thinking of the persuasive essay thing in my mind, if you're going to compare and contrast, you got to say, this is how San Francisco do it. This is how it could work nationally. So give us the nitty gritty here. Come on.
Our unprecedented investment in black male teachers was made as a collective community investment.
Collective always makes me think communist.
Mm-hmm.
And inspired by the GI Bill, we sought to inclusively invest in education, workforce development, financial and wellness supports for our fellows.
You just restated everything you said a minute ago, which is different words, which seems to be the pattern here.
And didn't explain how.
Right.
Where does this investment come from?
Where does the rubber has to meet the road on nickels and dimes? So how did you do it? Where did San Francisco find the extra money? You said creative solutions, like what? And what are the national, analogous mechanisms that you would employ if you were to do this plan across the country? Come on.
Here's what that looked like for us in our work.
Okay.
To provide cost-free credentialing and graduate school tuition.
How?
We partnered with school districts, the state of California, and other local partners to wipe away tens of thousands of dollars needed to upskill our fellows.
How?
Into higher quality classroom management.
How?
This was an essential building block in igniting interest in a field where so many are leaving, and only 1.3% of teachers are black men.
Okay, that last bit has nothing to do with nothing, but apparently it's important to you, which makes me all the more skeptical of doing anything about this. But so you basically just put the bill on the tax. You don't wipe away. Somebody's paying for this, okay? It's not like it's just free money out of nowhere. Somebody's paying for this, and if you're talking about state schools and the state of California, you're talking about taxpayer money. What did you take money from to pay for this? What creative accounting did you implement to pay for this? You have to tell us this in order to make at least a meaningful sales pitch. Am I missing something here?
No, but the other part too, which is also frightening, is he just said that it's 1.3% of teachers are black. That's 10% of the 13% population of the country. It just doesn't feel like a proper solution if you're only going to be increasing if your goal is to try and get more teachers and you're only focusing on 1.3% of one demographic, you're not getting more teachers. You're actually excluding 98.7% of the potential teachers out there.
The pool of teachers that could be in there. And the other thing too, once you start talking about statistics, and even though it's already questionable in bringing up race and gender in your hiring practices or recruitment practices in the first place, when you start putting percentages in there, don't tell me there's no quota goal that you're aiming for, which is automatically illegal in this country when it comes to race, gender, religion, ethnicity, etc. Come on, this is
to ensure that our Black male fellows had a real shot of matriculating through teacher credentialing pathways and had guaranteed job placements.
So give preferential treatment to people on the basis of their race and gender? Golly, what? Boy, oh boy, doesn't sound like the good old days, everybody.
Yeah, like what was prohibiting them beforehand? If you're going to provide a solution, point to the problem first. It's like, okay, there's not enough male Black teachers. Why is that? Well, they're not interested. Okay, well, how do we get them interested? That's one thing. He's trying to imply that there are interested, but there's something that prevented them from getting involved in this profession, and that his program was the ladder over that wall for these gentlemen to take.
Yeah, see, I'm waiting for we need to artificially elevate people who look a particular way into these professional positions in order to inspire the next generation, because if they don't see themselves in their teachers, they're not going to go for that in their own professional careers. I'm waiting for that to be the thing where every kid is an automatic racist. They need to be able to see someone who looks like them in a position of authority to have a belief in themselves, because they too only believe in skin color first and foremost. It's just, anyway, okay.
We partnered with institutions of higher education,
historically Black colleges and universities,
teacher residency programs, and school principals to build in more personalized fit assessments for Black men.
Personalized for Black men. So the lowest common denominator, and then you'll consider who they are after you've assessed what they are. Oh, great. Yeah. Tell me more. This is modern education, right?
More overall patience in the hiring process.
Patience.
And to give second chances to men who usually don't receive a first.
What?
Huh? They're manipulating the hiring process to show preferential treatment to a very narrow demographic. That's what he's suggesting works.
Yeah. Also, the soft bigotry of low expectations. Go ahead.
Here's the bigger question. How do students respond and perform as a result of this?
Right. Yeah. So ultimately it's like, okay. Trying to set aside my irritation here for a second. It's hard to do. All right. So let's pretend everything's completely peachy, hunky dory. All right. So San Francisco implemented this program. You found the money to do it from somewhere. You paid for all this stuff and you implemented it. What have the results been? How has this worked? What is the success story? I need to hear your success story. If I don't hear a success story, it's not a good pitch, and we still only got a couple minutes left in this thing. Thank you, Ms. Tickle Trunk. Again, I just want to add a little context to the financials of this talk. American teachers are already the 8th highest paid on the entire planet. Well, Mr. Tickle Trunk, America has to be number one. Okay, we got to be number one. I know you two are Canadian, and I know you guys like to think very highly of it, but America, fuck you. That's us. Okay, so it's not good enough. We need to become number one by focusing on 1.3%. That's how it works.
You need to be 1.3%. That's your number. You need to be
America 1.3%. Yeah, okay. The new magic number at 1.3%. I'm going to back up a second because I want to make sure I didn't lose any context here.
Process. And to give second chances to men who usually don't receive a first. Right.
So but by looking at someone based on their race and their gender, I have to assume they need special help because obviously they, just by nature of what they are, they need special consideration. Okay, gotcha. I wonder if there was any kind of philosophy like that operated in America, I don't know, back in the 50s or 60s or something, that a whole bunch of people kind of put their lives on the line to kind of stop and move away from. I must be taking crazy pills. And thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Just rubbing in Canadian teachers are 6th. Don't be rubbing your Canadian teachers. They might like it too much.
Well, take the currency. Well, is that true? Because the currency exchange rate is like 30%. So maybe they're tied at that point.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, Canadian drachma versus the American dollar.
To offer the financial and wellness provisions I mentioned,
what?
We partner directly with Black property owners to provide subsidized housing.
Okay, so not only are you being discriminatory in those you're going to offer jobs to and all these benefits to, but you're also going to be discriminatory on the basis of race in the owners of property management companies and who you're going to work with as vendors. Golly, do you guys see a pattern forming here? Seriously, dude. Oh my God. Welcome to TEDx, by the way, TED Excellence. I am King Midas in reverse. Even when I think I'm getting a presentation that might actually be, thoughtful or intellectual or something that actually could be a worthy debate topic, I find something with this stuff weeded into it. It's just, on the one hand, it's entertaining. On the other hand, it's completely frustrating and disappointing. Because I'd like to hear an actual solution, a solution that just actually tries to address the problem after the problem has been properly articulated in the first place. But here we are.
Black mental health professionals to provide free therapy.
Yeah.
And financial institutions to support our investment in each fellow as a whole person.
There's an irony to this.
Oh, there's a great irony. It's called systemic racism.
But not only that, it's the Black property owners that are providing a discount to fellow Black people, the Black psychiatrists that are providing free services to Black people. He's exploiting Black people for the benefit of other Black people.
I could say something about the woman king here, but I think I said enough.
Now, most of us have heard that it is difficult for a child to learn on an empty stomach.
Okay.
Sure.
That's
okay.
one hell of a segue there, Cotton.
Well, okay, you've drawn me in with your universal truth,
Well, how difficult is it to teach 20 to 25 of those children if you're struggling to make ends meet yourself?
Well, maybe check out your own financial spending or something. Okay. To say that some teachers are underpaid in this country is a truth I think some people would be able to accept depending on where you're talking about and cost of living, et cetera, versus pay. Okay, but what are you proposing specifically be done? Just so far, it's just, you start off this talk saying you can't just solve problems with money. And yet everything you've talked about so far is solving problems with money, either in having the taxpayer foot the bill or finding creative accounting to find money and take it away from other places and put it into the pockets of other, or somehow recruiting mental health professionals to offer free services to their patients on the basis of their race, which is just all sorts of goofiness. But what do you mean?
Especially living under the low income threshold in San Francisco, where the cost of living is through the roof.
Yeah, okay. And so what did you do to solve that?
Literally.
Okay.
Some of you may be thinking, well, Randy, why just Black males?
Well, I'll tell you what, even though you're correct, that is mind reading assumes motives. So I'll be circling that one. Now, tell us, and I really want to be able to use my psychic stinger legitimately here. Tell us it's because the kids need to be able to see themselves in their teachers to believe they too can become teachers.
Why not all teachers?
Yeah, good. You know what? Credit where credit is due. He's actually addressing the elephant in the room. Okay, let's see what he says, guys. What is his pitch? How does he justify this? Here we go.
Well,
I
know that bringing conversations about race and identity in education may be controversial and political.
Maybe. Yeah, they are.
But it is necessary.
Why?
I learned this lesson from the great Angela Glover Blackwell and her analysis of the curb cut effect.
The curb cut effect. Okay, for those of you listening at home, we have a card on the screen that says, when we create solutions based on the needs of the most vulnerable, everybody benefits. Okay. And then there's pictures of, I don't know what you want to call them, like those little column barriers on street corners so cars can't veer off and hit people on the sidewalks. You've got another road worker picture and then a couple on bikes. Okay. Cyclists, okay. Yes. Okay.
Curb cuts were originally designed to meet the accessibility needs of wheelchair users and other members of the differently able community.
You're not going to tell me that Black people are inherently disabled, are you?
I hope not. God.
I hope that's not where you're going.
If you look across the country today at street intersections, you'll see everybody using those curb cuts. Seniors wheeling groceries, parents walking small children, vendors pushing merchandise, etc.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. So what?
But I can imagine back then, someone may have challenged universal curb cuts with something like, why prioritize one community and cut all curbs?
That's not how it came to be. The angle is you use less material with a curb cut because it slopes down to the road. So you save money with it.
Also, if you are going to just base that on one demographic of society, well, it's because there's a demonstrable barrier for entry for that demographic of society. A provable barrier of entry and ease of access. So boy, this guy's on shaky ground. Okay, you're going to draw a line between people who are physically disabled to specifically black male teachers. Best of luck to you.
This is the way curbs have always been.
That wasn't that funny, actually,
guys. Curbs were a very new thing because they didn't really come into play until the automobile took over the roads. At that point, a street was just a street.
Yeah. Okay, dude, come on. An audience, you're not helping things. That was not much of a punchline.
Well, somebody. We know that when we create and design solutions based on the needs of the most vulnerable, everybody benefits.
Why are black men becoming teachers inherently vulnerable? I mean, but between the GI Bill and now curb cuts, you have brought up these examples that are supposed to be illustrative of your plan. Yet you haven't told us what your plan is or how it works. But you keep bringing up these things, and trying to draw a line one to the other has been practically impossible. Teachers and frontline soldiers, curb cuts and black male teacher potentials. Like, you've got 2 minutes, dude. Come on. It's not going to happen, is it? Oh, man.
And so I believe that in this country, if we can build a system that treats black male teachers well, then we're building a system that treats all teachers well.
Why don't you start off with the first? You got it backwards. You have it.
Yeah.
And you weren't talking about teachers. I mean, this whole thing was trying to entice people into becoming teachers, not existing teachers. This was about building. We have a teacher shortage. So it's.
So he's
what are you talking about?
He's strayed away from his premise.
Yeah.
And he is now equated black male teachers being the bottom of the barrel, lowest of the low of all teachers in the teaching pool, which is incredibly insulting. And he's saying, and he's trying to frame it in the way as if we can fix them, which I think is a horrible approach to it, we can then fix all teachers. I would be kicked out of this audience because I would be screaming at the guy.
Yeah, this is why I can never attend a TEDx event. I'd be done for. And I always wonder, and I think they've done it at some, but you never see it on film, if there's ever any like Q&A after some of these things. I don't think there is, but I would love it if there are, and if I could attend something like this, because I got a few questions.
Most of you have also heard of the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child.
Well, since Hillary Clinton completely appropriated that proverb for her title of her book. Yeah. Never mind.
The saying speaks to the need for us as an entire community to come together to support the successful positive development of children.
Yeah, but you just equated that with supporting the successful positive development of one particular demographic based on race and gender. So you're equating children in need who are helpless with grown adults looking presumably to become teachers, but they just can't make it because, I guess, without you saying it, the entire system's aligned against them because of their race and their gender. And I'm honestly amazed he's not brought up the every child benefits from having one teacher of color in their classrooms and or students need to see themselves in their teacher. I'm honest. If he doesn't say that in the next 45 seconds or whatever, I'll be impressed, because that's usually the go-to line, one or the other, in arguments such as these.
And when I look at how some of our children are doing today, I get a little mad at all the villages.
Oh.
We're doing a terrible job as a unit with these children I'm talking about.
I do? Okay.
Which children?
Yeah,
But we can change that together.
Okay.
If we extend that village mentality of support to our teachers.
As long as they fall within the preferred demographics, right?
Because
it takes a village to create a teacher.
It takes a village to create a teacher, right? A specific teacher of a particular look, I guess.
Are the first line of defense in our campaign for student success.
Oh, is that your callback to GI Bill? Student success. Okay. How successful has the San Francisco plan been? You can't bring that up and not give us some idea, because we know we won World War II at great cost, and we know what the results were for the GIs that were coming home and thereafter. You haven't told us the great success of San Francisco. You just told us, and not even specifically, what you did on a high-level abstract. But you haven't even told us that it worked. You haven't even shown us, like, and besides, I think you said he's just implemented this within the last year or something, or 2 years. Could you even have reasonable data sets yet on scholastic improvement?
Not with that short of a pool. It usually goes on 5-year stints, because that's how long it takes for the results to see change in a child.
Right. You have to see them move up through, K through 6 or through their high school years or something like that. So,
yeah.
Oh, man.
The first line. And these patriots need more from us. So how much is too much to invest in teachers? Well, in the richest nation in the history of the world, I know we can afford it together. Thank you.
Garbage.
Total. He said nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. And I know veterans of the show, we've been here before, right? And this is a TED Talk. This isn't some like podunk town high school puts on a show kind of TEDx deal. This is supposed to be a TED Talk. And I know that the line between TED and TEDx is practically non-existent anymore. But when I came into this, I wanted to have something substantive to present, not only to myself, but to my guest. And now that I've said substantive. That's the rule now. I have to give a jibe at Irate Alex every time I say that. And so it was a bag full of nothing. And so I'm now thinking, and my brain was trying to figure out, okay, what would a teacher GI Bill actually look like if I had to figure out what that would do? And he's just talking about, sounds like, simulating the GI Bill, not for teachers all around, but for a specific subset of teachers. And he tries to explain why that specific subset of teachers. He says that, well, if you help out this tiny little percentile of potential teachers, all teachers will benefit. How? If you're segregating the benefits to people, by the way, taxpayer benefits. He didn't. It is amazing to me. Well, maybe not that amazing to me that he's so, daintily danced around the source of where this money is coming from. And especially in California, and especially with the federal laws that we have, that you're going to set aside taxpayer money in educational spaces specifically for people on the basis of their race and their gender. And that is supposed to benefit everybody. But he never told us how. Not even in the abstract did he tell us, just that it would.
He never gave us a target either. How much? What's the dollar amount? What is the percentage as it relates to inflation?
Mm-hmm. How much was spent in San Francisco to achieve at least the ends that you have? And by extension, how much would that be on a national level? I mean, he asked these questions at the top. How much to invest? How much should you not invest? And so on. And then, of course, he added in the blackmail part later because yay, Trojan horse. But he never even came close to giving us a number. The only number I think we got in the entire thing was 1.3%.
Yeah, aside from the numbers had equated with the GI Bill back
Oh,
in
the billions, yes.
1947,
Yes.
and 243 billion in today's dollars, that doesn't mean anything.
Unless he's saying that that's how much we should be investing today in this teacher GI Bill, I guess. I mean,
And if that's the case, you have to equate that with how much is being invested currently.
Right. And contrast and everything else, or where the failings are. Now, like I say, I'd be open to somebody saying, you know, our teacher compensation system in this country is inadequate, and it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that, and only I'd be open to that kind of thing. And if it's something like that had been in here, I'd be like, okay, maybe I could believe it. But we didn't even get anything like that. He didn't even state, like, what is the current situation, what is the ideal situation, and how would you propose to get from point A to point B? Nothing.
Yeah. He never addressed, like, yes, we have a shortage of teachers, which means we have multiple teachers teaching multiple classes across multiple grades. So we have one teacher that teaches grade 2, 3, and 4 in this one school, and they have to balance them out between the other teachers that teach like gym and maybe a computer science class that is rotating through the classes so that they can teach all those kids, 25 to 35 kids per classroom. Like, that's a stressful environment, in which case it says, yes, that is a justifiable teacher shortage. So what we need to do is we need to first figure out, well, why do we have those few teachers in those schools? Could it be part of the building is falling apart due to bad maintenance that's been cornered off so that you can't actually occupy those rooms anymore? So kids are actually you're playing a shell game with kids, moving them from the same room to another room throughout the day to get their education. And it's a handful of teachers that are teaching them. Well, maybe you have to invest in renovations and infrastructure. That's going to come with a cost, but that will have a long-term gain effect as regards to you can hire a teacher that can actually occupy that room, and you're no longer shuffling students around all day. So now they can focus with their homeroom class and the education that comes with that and so forth. And that's one example of something that he could have addressed in proposing to expand teachers, because he lied to everyone here. He said getting more teachers, but no, he's not about getting more teachers. He's about propping up 1.3% of a demographic within a larger teacher pool just because.
Yeah. And like I said before, and as I sort of was worried about at the beginning, it's like, did he articulate the problem in such a way that I could follow along and see how his argument applied to it? No. It wasn't like, our teacher to student ratio in this country in 1982 was X, and today it is Y. And it's not like the students become less of a handful over the course of the last few decades. So we're at a teacher shortage because of I'm sure those numbers are out there. I'm sure there's some kind of, statistic or some kind of measurement or study that says, the number of students per teacher per classroom or whatever on average in America was this at one time, and now it's this. And so thus, obviously, we have a teacher shortage for the population of students there are by contrast. I'd love to hear that, just for the sake of an argument that has this title. We didn't hear that. And so if you, again, for those of you in the chat who might, are still in school or have to make some kind of presentation at some point in the future, you have to, as completely as possible, efficiently as possible, articulate the problem, and whatever solution you offer has to address the points that you bring up in that problem one for one. If you don't do that, you will not have a successful presentation. It's sort of like in a court case, right? There's certain things that the prosecution can only respond to if they're brought up by the defense or vice versa. Okay, and you have to come back to those things. If you open the door to something, you're opening the door to a contrasting view or a conflict or an adversarial response. You have to be there to address that. And he didn't even do any of that. And that only tells me one of two things. Either he doesn't have anything to offer, and so he can't bother bringing up specific, statistics or numbers or whatever else, because he doesn't have a response to those things. Right? But you see, when you're talking about something like this, you have to bring the facts. If you're going to say we did this in San Francisco and we achieved success, okay, how do you measure success? What does success look like? How do you expand that out to this proposal of a national program, and so on and so forth? And he didn't even come close. So anyway, we could complain all day about the quality of the presentation, and we still will, but we will do so in a more targeted fashion now with the bingo card. So let me bring up the bingo card here real quick. Put that up on the board. All right. So I got to shrink that sucker down a little bit because that's a bit too big. How about that big enough? One more time, just for the sake of argument. All right. There we go, the bingo card. So what we're going to do now, guys, Script Doctor and I are going to go over this card one more time by ourselves, see if we have any other squares to be circled. If you have any arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them. We might get to them presently. And if we don't, then it'll be your time to convince us to circle the card. All right, marginalized or marginalization. I think that is more than implied by going into the some people need second chances.
Yeah.
They never get the first chances and so on. So I think we're safe in doing that one. Next, self-vilification or wretchedness. Again, he never used himself as an example in his presentation. And
No, I did not.
yeah, so consequently, several squares are already vetoed on that basis alone. Self-vilification, plays victim, and family or childhood or family anecdotes. So we're already at a deficit there. But let's keep going. Contradicts own point or argument. I don't know. Do you think?
Doesn't make one.
Well, there's that too. But also by going the reverse and saying that you need to focus on a tiny demographic in order to benefit everybody. When he was talking about originally, how much do you pay? And then he moves to this. So his opening card had a broad-based, what is the teacher worth?
Yes.
And then he goes down to what is a black male teacher worth? Like, okay. So,
but there is a contradiction there in the fact that you can't expand teachers when you focus on only one sliver of it.
Unless you're going to, and I was waiting to hear something like this because I was, waiting on with bated breath for this. What is so special in needs or consideration for someone that just looks this way as a potential teacher versus someone else that looks a different way as a potential teacher? I wanted to hear what the specialties were there. Okay, feminism, no, he never really brought up gender politics or anything. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Well, there was an implication, again, not to double dip, there was an implication because someone looks this way, they are set aside, they're not considered, they're not given the same opportunities as other people.
That whole people who need a second chance when they weren't given a first chance, I would say nails that. Yeah,
I don't often I try to avoid double dipping on the same point, but given how few this guy gave us this time, let's see. Oh, sorry, I got to update the card. Privilege, that was implied as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, just for those of you that might be new here, the bingo card is fairly sacred in that there has to be either a specific example within the presentation that fulfills the square on a card, or an aggregate theme in either argumentation or subject matter that would essentially equate to the square. Not until you get down to like a square that will make a bingo or a double bingo or something do I get really picky. But up to that point, there's some wiggle room. So in this case, I'm going to say that yes, teachers who are not black and male possess a privilege because of the obviously the reverse of what he was implying about black male teachers in general.
Yeah, he was implying it through the absence use of referencing it because he was focusing on the underprivileged.
Yeah. Benevolent condescension. Again, I think I have to triple dip now or something because obviously this type of person needs special help.
Yeah.
And not only that, but just and here's the other thing. I know this is a little bit of a stretch. But in the course of his presentation, just thinking about, again, the federal laws in place, the civil rights movement of the 60s, Title VI, Title VII, all these things are irrelevant to him. And just going to pretend like they don't exist. Like there's nothing that might get in the way of this. This is why I'm really interested to know how San Francisco got away with this if this was their model. If this is what they were doing, both in state law and federal law in employment practices for public schools, I'm assuming public schools. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was talking about private schools or something, which they have a little bit more leeway under law if they're not accepting federal funding. But he was talking about public school districts and things like that. I am boggled to understand how they got away with this without some kind of legal challenge. But either way. Okay, waitlist example, the GI Bill. He never gave us what the equivalent would be on a teacher level, like how it would work. Not that the elements of the GI Bill shouldn't be implemented, but just like how it would work, where the money would come from. Creative accounting. The San Francisco example all around was waitlist because he never gave us a success story out of it, just that we had success. How? How did you measure success? In what way? Student achievement? Within what, 3 years of implementing the program? What? Mm-hmm. Or I'm not sure if he wanted, this is the only thing I could see how I could measure success. How many male black teachers did you employ out of this program? Was it 100%?
Or
plays
1.3%.
1.3%. Yeah, sure. A plays victim. Again, he didn't. Yeah, and that's where the speaker makes themselves as an example or a participant in their argument a victim, and he never did.
No.
Collectivize his own demographic. Well, yes.
Yeah.
he really did over the course of eventually. It took him about halfway through the talk to get there. But then he generalized and collectivized and so on and so forth. So argumentative non sequitur. Now, this is a tough one. This can be sometimes a really tough one. It's got to be something he brought up at some point that literally led nowhere and had almost nothing to do with anything. And so my first thought is, well, the GI Bill, it's like, well, he brought it up. He didn't help detail how it compared to what he was planning or proposing for teachers, but it wasn't a non sequitur because it was, at least as far as the abstract examples he gave, the basis of the structure.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
He brought up the hungry children. He brought it up.
Children can't learn on an empty stomach.
Yep, he brought it up and then completely dropped that and went straight into how are teachers able to teach them when they're also financially struggling.
Well, okay, but is that a non sequitur? I mean, the comparison between a starving child and a teacher who is having trouble making ends meet is a dramatic comparison, but is it a disconnected comparison?
That's a good question.
That'd be my only
thought.
Yeah, that'd be my only question. It's obviously over dramatic. Mm-hmm. But is it unrelated? Does it not then? I mean, he followed that up with comparing that to a teacher who can't teach because they can't make ends meet. So they're so stressed out about doing everything else, they can't be a quality teacher. A child is so stressed out about being hungry that they can't learn. Okay, it seems like a bizarre kind of contrast, but I could see where he was going with it. So does that? Trying to think back to, because a lot of the stuff is at the beginning there. Well, you know what? When he said money can solve, was he arguing against money solving any problem? He said, I'm trying.
He was arguing against that, how much money could solve any problem, and he says that no money can't just solve all the problems. They have to go. Oh God, what was he suggesting? You have to look at something else.
Well, I think he was. It sounded like he was going for a quality argument.
Yeah.
Rather than quantity. He never really came back to quality, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, he went. No, you know.
Quality.
Yeah, he just went from. I mean, he gave lip service to it, and then by the time you get to the midpoint of the talk, he's completely talking about demographics and not even anything about merit or training or education or quality thereof, just the look of the people. I think the quality argument is our argumentative non sequitur.
That could be fair because he also then brought in black-owned prop renters.
Yeah.
Black-owned psychologists to give them free stuff.
And he never explained, like, why does it have to be
that
people like again, and I talk about this, it's effectively racially segregated public services or education services. Right, that only black people can be psychologists to black teachers. Only black property owners should service black teachers. Why? I mean, why deny people the opportunity to either find some business, discounted or otherwise, based on there's so many levels of blatantly illegal discrimination in his proposal, and yet he never explained. He again, lip service. He said, why? Oh, because it'll benefit everybody. But how? Well, I'm not going to tell you. All right. Well, between all that, I think we probably got that. And again, just for those of you in the audience, if you disagree with a square being circled and you have a counter argument to uncircle a square, I am completely open to that as well, because heaven knows I'm not infallible, except, most times. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything like that. He never said something I like to call, or here's an acronym for our program or anything like that.
Didn't even get a name for the program.
Well, no, he said it was Urban Ed something or other. Like he gave a name for the San Francisco project, but I just kind of marked that up to sales pitch for product or service,
right?
Rather than being a buzzword or buzz phrase. So, patriarchy. Well, yeah, black males. Or is that too cheeky?
I mean, it's true, but it's the question is like, is the patriarchy supposed to be is that supposed to be in the context of the system of oppressive or system of favorable?
Yeah, this is the gray area of this. It's like, okay, was patriarchy part of his presentation? It's explicitly or implied?
Technically, because he is focused on males, black males.
Yeah, and I assume that's a counterpoint to the majority of teachers in the U.S., which are white females, but I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll circle it. But it's I could see an argument against that because it wasn't a primary.
It wasn't a motivator. That's the thing. Right?
Yeah,
like, it didn't feel like, oh, we're doing this for this. It's he's kind of pitching as that 1.3%. Yeah, he was leaning a lot on the fact that it was black males that are not getting their due.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there for now. Again, if anybody has an argument elsewise. Anecdote that probably never happened. Okay, and so for just for reference's sake, this is something like somebody says, I was watching TV with my child the other day, and a news story came up on Donald Trump, and then my 5-year-old turned to me and said, "Mother, why is it that a man that is such a blowhard becomes such a focus of our society?" And something like that. That's something that's too good to be true that just automatically becomes a win in their argument, or something that just sounds beyond the pale. I don't know. See, here's the problem I have is that the only anecdote he alluded to was the San Francisco project, but he never gave us an outcome. He never finished off that anecdote with something that would say, here's, or maybe the anecdote is our project was successful, but didn't give us why.
That's a broad approach. Because again, he didn't have any sort of story that could line up to that. All the other things he brought up were verifiable, especially with the GI Bill.
Right.
But yeah, he really did skirt around a lot of things that would make his pitch useful.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll accept an anecdote that sounds fake, but is at least fully completed as a story. He never really gave us anything about himself. Again, the prime territory there was, we already tried this in San Francisco, and this, and this happened. But we never even got that. It was just sort of like making the general proposal about how it is or would work. I don't know. I'm iffy on that one. I'm open for arguments. Okay. White supremacy. Okay. Now this is a tough one again, because he never brought up the phrase. There's a lot implied by where he decided to take the focus of his presentation. I mean, presumably, and again, this is sort of the implication part of it, is that he wants to focus on this small demographic because the rest of the teacher pool is so dominated by the opposite end of the spectrum, because there's only two races in a lot of these activists' minds. So that's the implication of white supremacy in the reverse of what his proposal is. But does that become a main theme? I mean, I suppose it does, because he made it that his focus at the end there.
Yeah. Because he started off broad, then he narrowed it down. Because that's the other part too. Sometimes the absence of something that is counter to the point you're making is actually implied in the point you're making.
Right. Yeah. It's the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. It's like, look, this bar is bigger than this bar, therefore the space in between is ism or something. Right. We see that all the time in these presentations and other things we look at, where someone will just say, look, this number is bigger than this number, and that's a problem. And then they'll just move on, like, you're not controlling for anything else. You're just going to leave it hanging in the ether and let our minds and our imaginations fill in the gap. Okay. All right. Sure. Okay.
I think him pointing out that 1.3% of teachers are black male. So that would just say that the 98.7% are not. That would be an implication of supremacy, not necessarily white supremacy, but just supremacy of
numbers.
Yeah,
that's another like amazing conflation I hear oftentimes when I hear about white supremacy. It's not about a belief in the rectitude of someone's skin color. It's just a matter of demographic split, and they call that white supremacy. Mm-hmm. But anyway. Okay, well, you know what? I think we played that one out pretty well, so I'm gonna circle that one. And boy, oh boy, guys, we are just on the cusp of like 2 or 3 different bingos, depending on how things go. Okay, lastly, childhood or family anecdote. Nope, didn't bring up himself. Yep. Leaves out vital context. Boy, howdy. How many times over the course of this have Script Doctor and I said, how, why, how? And lastly, word salad. I think this is a gimme because even though it might not have been a argumentative non sequitur per se, child is hungry, it takes a village, benefiting this one small demographic will benefit everybody with, I mean, it's the aggregate loose ends.
It's kind of more like a sentence salad where he would throw in these kind of phrases that by themselves are fine, but when you combine them together, they don't have any connecting factor to them.
Right. You just leave thoughts hanging or follow-ups implied and then just move on to something else. So, at least with that, if you can believe it, and if I can find the right button, because I am all over the... Oh.
Bingo!
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course! Bingo.
What?
Of course!
We have a double bingo, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now it is your time, everyone. Script Doctor and I have had our shot at the proverbial apple here. You guys, if you have any arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. If you tag me in your comment, it makes me see it a little bit easier. But we have a few squares left. Some of these arguments, if you've got them, they better be really good because I think a couple of them are already vetoed out because he didn't use himself as an example. So we might be already at the end, but let's see. Mark Smart says, describe the whole thing with black male teachers was a well-hidden white supremacy. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's, I think, what we agreed upon there. Let's see. Somnambular Nation, even though you already circled it, sure. Does the fact that he brought up San Francisco without addressing process nor results be considered a non sequitur? Well, ultimately, yes, because you would think he would have that as his prime case study for what he's proposing. And that he'd go into some more details of, well, like the GI Bill. In San Francisco, we did X, Y, Z, P, D, Q. And we went to this place and did this, that, and the other. And he didn't. And if he's trying to make a national proposal based on a local program, you would expect he would take that and just extrapolate into what you would do on a national level. I mean, we early on
never proposed a model that could be followed or implemented across other regions.
Yeah, he should have spent less time talking about he should have mentioned the GI Bill for like 15 seconds and then said, and using that as a model for what we did in San Francisco, here's how we structured it. And then he put up like a little card that has like a little bubble chart or something and something like that, and where you got the money from and how much you spent on this and what you learned from this mistake. That would have been a much more effective presentation and argument. But the fact that he refrained from details just makes me more suspicious, not more convinced. The Assassin of the Gray had a true patriot ruin my A- math by using me as the class chew toy, dropping me to D+, and no one asked any questions because they knew he picked a dummy each class. That SOB was white. Well, white people can't be imperfect. Right? That's what all the DEI people tell me with their inherent privilege and stuff. Anyway, Tony Giff, come in thinking that our TEDx cards would be useless on a TED Talk. Was I wrong? No. TEDx cards are good for both TEDx Talks, TED Talks, and real life in general. And somebody trying to persuade you into something. I mean, there might be a couple of squares that are rare, but let's see. Mark Smart again. Scribelight, wouldn't him teaching us on the TED Talk be him playing victim as a black teacher? Not best argument, but still. Well, I mean, okay, all right. You know what? So, yeah, he's an educator, and he defaulted to the claim that people like him are automatically not given second chances.
See, I don't think he proposed himself as an educator. I think he said that he is a recruiter.
Is that what he said at the top? I thought. Okay, now I'm gonna. Okay, well, no. I have to either look him up or listen to that bit again offline for a second, because I thought he said. Hold on, I'm listening to it. 1 second. I've been working in teacher recruitment for the past 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So not specifically teacher, but he was talking about, he wasn't, of course, he wasn't talking about teachers specifically. He was talking about just black men in general are not given a second chance. So does that, by extension, then make him, as a standing example on the stage, placing himself in a victim status?
Hard to say, because he doesn't draw an equation to himself with that.
Yeah, that's the
and
one
if he were to
part,
make
yeah.
that claim, it'd be a contradiction, because he's had a career for 8 years as a teacher recruitment guy.
Yeah, I think that's the one element. Mark, it's a really good observation. I think the one element that's missing is that, again, he very pointedly did not make himself or his personal experience a part of the presentation, save for the fact of his professional focus, let's say. That's his connection to the rest of the presentation, is what he does as a career. But him making himself in any more detail a part of the argument or the presentation didn't really happen. So I get where you're going, but it is a bingo square, and it just, again, in this case, maybe the implication would be enough sometime, but in this, yeah, that close, but only by a hair, I'd say. But good observation. That is true, because I didn't really, if you can believe it, I didn't really think about the race or gender of the speaker. Here's the thing. You argue the point and not the person, unless the person makes themselves part of the point. And he never did. So it doesn't really even come to my mind. But again, if somebody else wants to latch on to Mark's argument or enhance it or something, or Mark, you want to do
or if there's something we missed from that, because
Mark says I did put quotes around the teacher. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure, because I was straining to remember exactly what his role in the thing was too. Let's see, Mr. Tickletrunk. So he's in the DEI department of whatever school board hired him. Well, whether he is or not, he is effectively a DEI advocate. For education, because and again, I'm amazed, absolutely gobsmacked, that he did not use one of the two arguments of statistics show students benefit from having one teacher of color, etc., or students need to see themselves in their teachers to believe, etc. So I'm honestly baffled that those didn't come up, because usually the go-to pieces of sophistry that are used in these kind of arguments.
Oh yeah, it's the low-hanging fruit, especially from someone who would be in human resources, which is essentially what a recruiter is. Like, he's the guy that he posts ads on Indeed looking for teachers, and then he screens out the candidates that he will interview and then bring them into whatever school requires them. And if his focus is going to be on black male teachers, that's a lot of stuff to sort through with such a narrow target.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think we may have hit an impasse here with any other squares. Now, as always, and this has happened a couple of times, if you're listening to this in the future or happen to have missed your comments somewhere in the chat, if you have an argument for a square to be circled that we didn't hear or hadn't previously entertained, feel free to post it in the comments below. And if it passes retroactive muster in my mind, it may be the case that I'll circle a square after the fact. And if that does equate to a bingo, I'll be sure to pin your comment to the top of the video for future reference, and I'll also post an updated bingo card to the Discord server. By the way, I have a Discord server. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that, Script Doctor?
Yes, I did know that. Yes.
Oh, well then I'm preaching to the choir. Anyway, I have a Discord server. Oh, before I get to that real quick, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Again, didn't learn to blackmail, much disappointing. Yeah, I know. Now there's, there's a great little video people have forgotten about, I think, of the time where it was David Letterman came on the air and detailed the blackmail scheme that was perpetrated on him right in front of his live audience. And it was so bizarre and so surprising that, I don't know why that's something that came to my mind. I was just trying to think of like a famous instance of blackmail where there was actually like you could watch something about it. And yeah, so just look up David Letterman blackmail thing. I'm sure somewhere on YouTube you can find it.
It should be on the CBS channel because they have a whole David Letterman section.
Yeah, that could be. There could be an actual like official clip rather than like some kind of bootleg thing. But yeah, it's actually a fascinating little piece of media and a little event that I was a big deal at the time. It kind of went by the wayside in the years since, I suppose. But yeah, him having to confess to a lot of things on the air and to defeat a blackmailer was just something else. You don't see that very often. But what you do see very often, at least, is the link to my Discord server. And that's in the chat right now. Just click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you are not a bot, have actually watched the stream, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is, what's today's secret word, Script Doctor?
I think today's secret word should be lesson.
Lesson. Just say hello, lesson, on the Discord channel there, and we'll know that you watch the show and become a member of the Discord channel. Let's see. Just a note, I will be doing, I know I'm a masochist. What can I tell you? I will be doing a regular TEDx stream tomorrow night at the usual time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Subject yet to be determined, though I'll tell you what. I'm looking at one. I'm only hesitant because it's a 20-minute long presentation, which is a bit lengthy for these. But the title of it fascinates me: How Landlords Can Create Safe Spaces. And it's presented to us by a man in a dress. And these elements together, without anything else known to me about the talk, just makes me very curious. So it might be that, but I don't know if I can handle 20 minutes of it. So we'll see. But either way, Script Doctor, what do you have coming up in the near future that people should know about?
Well, I've got my my show Scripts on Saturdays, which is every Saturday at 7 p.m. This week's is a recorded show, as there is a holiday weekend for my fellow Americans down south. And that, but you swing on over there, you got the recorded show, and then we've got my Patreon and my Twitter X handle at Script Doctor PhD, where you can check out my musings, my thoughts, and my tips and tricks for strengthening your writing skills, if that is your parlance, so to speak.
Yep, and links to all that good stuff is in the description below, guys, to Script Doctor's YouTube channels, Twitter account, and Patreon. So check those out when you're able to, and check out his show, Scripts on Saturdays, on Saturday, appropriately enough. Beyond that, I think we are done. So let's see, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, shout outs. Let's see, I already talked about true crime channel that everybody should check out called Little Shop of Crime. Steve, who I've spoken to several times before, is a really, really nice guy, and he does some really excellent work on there. So go check that out as well. Any shout outs on your end there, Script Doctor?
Well, go check out the Pop Culture Minefield guys. Gary Cassell was in here earlier. He's got a fun channel with a great set of panels, and he's got a little show, which I think is quite clever, called the Geriatrics. So go take a look at that, see what sort of fun things he discusses. He's got some great movie reviews and analyses over there, so check that out as well.
Yeah, and just as a sidewise promotion of my own, I recently interviewed Gary Cassell on his project Vindicated Incorporated, which is a vengeance military type Punisher comic book project that he's working on, has been working on for many years now, and just got around to working on again. His fundraiser for it has been going well, so check out in my playlist Familiar with the Matter for that, as well as my interview with Script Doctor from last year. I can't believe it's already a year ago now already. Talking about the writers' strikes and Hollywood strikes and the circumstances thereof at the time. I'll hopefully be doing a follow-up interview with Script Doctor about the aftermath in the year that has occurred since on those in the near future. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me and Script Doctor today for today's episode. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, Thank you guys so very much for your generosity. It is very much appreciated. Script Doctor, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, dude, it's an honor as always to be able to get on your show, and I'm glad the schedule worked out for us.
Yes, and we'll have to do it again sometime in the future. And everyone, otherwise, hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and the rest of your week ahead of you. Hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.